Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Endeavour, staring at the main screen in complete shock. What he saw should have been impossible. Floating in the dark space before them were the twisted remains of 12 massive warships. These were not just any ships. These were Draconian vessels, the most feared fleet in the known galaxy. "My God," whispered Lisa Carter from her position at the communications station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls, trying to find any sign of life among the wreckage. "Captain, I'm getting nothing. No distress signals, no emergency beacons, nothing at all." Jake had been a starship captain for 15 years. He had seen battle damage before. He had seen ships destroyed by enemy fire, torn apart by asteroid impacts, even consumed by stellar radiation. But this was different. The Draconian ships looked like they had been ripped apart by giant hands. Metal beams were twisted into impossible shapes. Hull plates were scattered across thousands of kilometers of space. "How many ships?" Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be bad. 12 capital ships, sir," replied Navigator Paul Johnson, his voice shaking slightly. "That's the entire 3rd Draconian battle fleet. Over 50,000 crew members." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Draconians had been humanity's greatest enemy for the past 2 years. Their ships were massive there, weapons devastating, and their warriors fearless. They had destroyed entire human colonies without mercy. Many people believed they could never be stopped. Dr. Kevin Price, the ship's science officer, looked up from his scanning equipment. "Captain, this destruction is recent. Very recent. Maybe 2 or 3 days at most. Any idea what could have done this?" Jake asked. Kevin shook his head slowly. "I've never seen damage patterns like this before. It's like something grabbed these ships and just tore them apart. The energy readings are off the charts, but I can't identify the weapon signature." Security Chief Mike Torres stepped forward, his face grim. "Sir, with respect, we should get out of here. Whatever did this might still be in the area." Jake understood Mike's concern, but he also knew his duty. "We need to investigate. If something destroyed the Draconian fleet, Earth Command needs to know about it immediately." Lisa suddenly straightened at her station. "Captain, I'm picking up a faint signal from one of the larger debris pieces. It might be a black box recorder. Can you get a lock on it?" "Yes, sir. It's about 2 kilometers off our starboard side." Jake turned to his engineer. "Tom, prep a shuttle. Take a small team and retrieve that recorder. But stay in constant contact. If anything seems wrong, get back here immediately." Tom Bradley nodded. "Understood, Captain." As Tom left the bridge, Jake studied the debris field more carefully. The Draconian ships had been arranged in a standard battle formation when they died. Their weapons were still powered down, suggesting they had not been expecting an attack. Whatever hit them had struck fast and without warning. "Lisa, try scanning for any survivors in the smaller debris pieces. Maybe someone made it to an escape pod." "Already tried, sir. There's nothing. No life signs anywhere in the entire field." Dr. Price looked up from his instruments again. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures scattered throughout the debris. It's almost like electromagnetic interference, but the pattern is strange. It seems to pulse like a heartbeat. Could it be from the ship's power cores?" "No. Sir, Draconian power cores don't produce this type of energy signature. This is something else entirely." 20 minutes later, Tom's voice crackled over the comm system. "Endeavour, this is Shuttle 1. We've retrieved the black box, but there's something you need to know. The recorder's memory core is completely fried. Whatever happened here produced enough electromagnetic energy to wipe out all electronic systems." Jake frowned. "All of them?" "Every single one we've checked, sir. It's like someone set off an electromagnetic pulse bomb, but 1,000 times more powerful than anything we've ever seen. Get back to the ship, Tom. We need to analyze what you found. As the shuttle returned, Jake noticed something troubling. The normal chatter and activity on his bridge had stopped. His crew was staring at the debris field with a mixture of fear and fascination. The Draconians had seemed unstoppable, and now they were nothing but scattered metal and frozen corpses. "Sir," said Lisa quietly, "I keep thinking about what the Draconians were doing out here. Intelligence reports said they were heading toward the outer colonies, maybe planning another attack on human settlements. And now they're all dead," added Paul, "every single one of them." Dr. Price suddenly looked up from his scanner, his face pale. "Captain, I'm reading something disturbing in the biological remains. The Draconian bodies I can scan. They show signs of extreme stress. Heart rates that were off the charts when they died. Brain activity suggesting pure terror." "Terror?" Jake asked. "Draconians don't feel terror. They're bred for warfare." "I know, sir. That's what makes this so frightening. Whatever killed them scared them first." The shuttle docked, and Tom returned to the bridge carrying the damaged black box. As the team worked to extract any remaining data, Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Paul, set course for the center of the debris field. We're going to conduct a full investigation." "Sir, are you sure that's wise?" Mike asked. Jake looked at the twisted remains of humanity's greatest enemy floating in the darkness before them. Something out there was powerful enough to destroy the most feared fleet in the galaxy. Earth needed to know what it was and whether it was friend or foe. "We're going in," he said firmly. "Whatever's out there, we need to find it before it finds us." 3 hours later, the USS Endeavour moved slowly through the debris field like a ghost ship among the dead. Captain Jake Morrison watched as his crew worked to salvage anything that might give them answers. The silence from the destroyed Draconian fleet was starting to feel heavy, like a weight pressing down on everyone. "Captain," called out Tom Bradley from the engine room over the COM system, "I've managed to get some power running to one of the smaller Draconian command modules. It's not much, but maybe we can access their computer systems." "Good work, Tom. Beth, get down there and see if you can make sense of their language files." Beth. Murphy, the ship's translator, was already heading toward the door. She had spent 2 years studying Draconian language patterns, trying to understand their battle communications. Now she might finally get a chance to see their records from the inside. Dr. Kevin Price looked up from his science station with a worried expression. "Captain, I'm detecting more of those strange energy readings. They're getting stronger as we move deeper into the debris field." "Stronger how?" "The pulse pattern is becoming more regular, more organized. It's almost like whatever is producing these signals is responding to our presence." Navigator Paul Johnson turned from his station, his face pale. "Sir, I'm reading gravitational distortions throughout this entire system. Space itself seems to be twisted somehow. My navigation computers can't get a stable reading." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Gravitational distortions meant something was warping spacetime itself. Only a few things in the universe could do that, and most of them were not good news for human ships. "Mike, double the security patrols," Jake ordered. "And keep all weapon systems on standby." Security Chief Mike Torres nodded grimly. "Already done, sir." "But I have to ask, what are we supposed to shoot at if we can't see it?" Before Jake could answer, Beth's voice came over the COM from the salvage bay. "Captain, you need to hear this. I found something in the Draconian computer files. It's not good. Put it on the main screen." The bridge's main display flickered to life, showing alien text that slowly transformed into English as Beth's translation program worked. What they saw chilled everyone to the bone. Final log entry, Draconian Battlefleet Commander Zektar. "We have encountered something that should not exist. The ancient warnings were true. The old enemy has awakened. Our weapons are useless. Our shields provide no protection. They come from the darkness between stars, and they hunger for more than just our ships. They hunger for our very essence. If anyone finds this record, flee this place. Do not investigate. Do not try to understand. Just run and pray to whatever gods you worship that they do not follow you home." The bridge fell silent. Jake stared at the words on the screen, trying to process what he was hearing. The Draconians were fearless warriors who had never retreated from any battle. What could possibly scare them so badly? "Beth, is there more?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, much more, and it gets worse." The screen changed to show another entry, this one even more disturbing. "They speak to us without words. They show us visions of the great war that consumed the galaxy millions of years ago. We see civilizations that spanned thousands of worlds, all reduced to dust and memory. They tell us we are not the first to challenge them, and we will not be the last. They are older than our oldest myths, and they remember when the stars were young. Our fleet is breaking apart, but not from weapons. They are taking us apart piece by piece, studying us, learning from us. They want to understand what we are before they destroy us completely." Nina Scott, the ship's sensor technician, suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Captain, my equipment is going crazy. Every time I try to scan certain parts of the debris field, my sensors shut down completely. It's like something is actively blocking our scans." Dr. Price stood up from his science station, his face serious. "Captain, I need to show you something. I've been analyzing the Draconian remains we've been able to scan. The medical data is disturbing." "How so?" "These beings didn't just die from weapons fire or explosive decompression. They died from fear. Pure, overwhelming terror. Their brain chemistry shows levels of stress hormones that should be impossible for any living creature to survive. They were literally scared to death." Jake felt his stomach turn. The Draconians were genetically modified for warfare. They were bred to feel no fear, to fight until their last breath. If something could terrify them to death, what would it do to humans? "Sir," Paul called out from his navigation station, "I'm detecting something else in the computer files. Star charts. They show a region of space that our databases have always marked as empty. But according to these Draconian records, it's not empty at all. Show me." The main screen changed to display a three-dimensional map of local space. In the center was a region that human astronomers had always assumed contained nothing but empty void. But the Draconian charts showed something different. There were structures there, massive ones, hidden somehow from normal detection. "The Draconians have labels on these charts," Beth said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They call this area the Forgotten Realm, and where the Watchers sleep. There are warnings all over these files telling their ships to avoid this region at all costs." "But they came here anyway," Jake said. "According to their logs, they didn't have a choice. Something was calling to them, drawing them here. They couldn't resist it." Dr. Price looked up from his medical scans with a grim expression. "Captain, I'm starting to think we're not just looking at a battle site. This feels more like a hunting ground. The Draconians were lured here, and then they were systematically destroyed. By what? I don't know, sir. But whatever it was, it's still here. And I think it's watching us." As if responding to his words, every alarm on the bridge suddenly started blaring. The lights flickered, and the ship's hull groaned as if under tremendous pressure. "Report!" Jake shouted over the noise. "Something's scanning us." Nina yelled, "Back!" But I can't locate the source. It's like the scan is coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Shields up. All hands to battle stations. But even as Jake gave the orders, he knew their weapons and shields would be useless against whatever had destroyed the mighty Draconian fleet. They were dealing with something far beyond human understanding, something that had been waiting in the darkness for millions of years. And now it knew they were here. The alarms stopped as suddenly as they had started. The USS Endeavour floated in complete silence among the Draconian wreckage. Captain Jake Morrison looked around his bridge, watching his crew's faces in the dim emergency lighting that had automatically kicked in. "Status report," Jake said quietly. "All systems are back to normal, sir," replied Tom Bradley over the comm. "But I can't explain what just happened. It was like something reached into our ship and looked around, then just left." Dr. Kevin Price checked his instruments with shaking hands. "Captain, whatever scanned us was incredibly advanced. My sensors recorded energy patterns that shouldn't be possible with any known technology." Jake made a decision that went against every rule in the Space Fleet Handbook. Instead of returning to Earth to report what they had found, he was going to investigate further. "Paul, set course for those coordinates the Draconians marked as forbiddens. We're going to see what's really out there." Navigator Paul Johnson stared at him. "Sir, are you sure that's wise? The Draconians were warning their own people to stay away from that area. And now they're all dead," Jake replied. "If there's something in that region that can destroy entire fleets, Earth needs to know about it. We can't just run away and hope it doesn't follow us home." The USS Endeavour left the debris field behind and jumped to faster-than-light speed. The journey to the Forbidden's coordinates took 6 hours. During that time, strange things began happening to the crew. Lisa Carter was the first to report the dreams. She came to Jake's ready room looking tired and frightened. "Captain, I had the strangest dream during my rest period. I saw a massive war happening in space. Ships I'd never seen before were fighting against something dark and terrible. Entire planets were being destroyed. And I could hear voices calling out in languages I don't understand. Just a nightmare, Lisa. We're all under stress." But over the next few hours, more crew members came forward with similar stories. Navigator Paul Johnson dreamed of ancient star maps that showed the galaxy as it was millions of years ago. Security. Chief Mike Torres saw visions of great battles fought long before humans had even left Earth. Dr. Carol White, the ship's psychologist, gathered all the reports and brought them to Jake. "Captain, this isn't random. Every crew member is experiencing the same type of visions. It's like something is putting images directly into our minds while we sleep." "What kind of images?" "Memories, sir, but not our memories. These are memories of events that happened long before human civilization existed. I think something is trying to show us the history of our galaxy." When the USS Endeavour dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the Forbidden's coordinates, what they found defied all explanation. Floating in the empty space before them was a structure so massive that their instruments could barely measure. It looked like a combination of ancient ruins and impossibly advanced technology. "My God," whispered Paul Johnson. "It's bigger than Earth's moon." The structure seemed to shift and change as they watched it, sometimes appearing solid and real, other times looking like it was made of pure energy. Strange lights moved across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," said Dr. Price, his voice filled with wonder and fear, "this thing is incredibly old. My scans suggest it's been here for millions of years, maybe longer. But it's also actively powered. Someone or something is still using it." Chief Science Officer Dan Rogers, who had been quiet during most of the journey, suddenly spoke up from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting similar structures throughout the galaxy. This isn't the only one. There are hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all connected by some kind of quantum communication network." Jake felt his mind struggling to process this information. "You're saying there's an entire network of these things scattered across the galaxy?" "Yes, sir. And they're all active. They're all watching and waiting for something." As the USS Endeavour moved closer to the massive structure, the crew's visions became stronger and more clear. They saw the rise and fall of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy long before humans had even evolved. They watched as countless species joined together to fight against an enemy that came from the dark spaces between galaxies. The visions showed them a war that lasted for thousands of years. Entire star systems were turned into battlefields. Planets were cracked open and their populations used as fuel for terrible weapons. And slowly, gradually, the alliance of civilizations began to lose. But in their final desperate hour, the alliance did something incredible. They took the combined knowledge and consciousness of all their species and created an artificial intelligence network designed to guard the galaxy long after they were gone. They called these guardians the Watchers. Dr. Carol White monitored the crew as these visions poured into their minds. "Captain, I think the structure is deliberately showing us this history. It's trying to make us understand something important." "What?" "I think it recognizes something in us. Something in human DNA or consciousness that connects us to the ancient alliance." Communications Officer Rob Carter suddenly looked up from his station with excitement. "Captain, I'm getting a response from the structure. It's trying to communicate with us." "Put it on the main screen." Instead of words or images, what came through was pure information downloaded directly into their minds. The crew suddenly understood things they had never learned, new facts about the galaxy that no human had ever discovered. The structure was indeed one of the Watchers, an ancient AI guardian that had been sleeping for millions of years. It had awakened when it detected the Draconian fleet approaching human space. The Watchers had identified the Draconians as a threat to humanity and had responded according to their original programming. They had destroyed the Draconian fleet to protect Earth, but the most shocking revelation was still to come. The Watchers revealed that humans were not just another random species that had evolved intelligence. They were the genetic descendants of one of the founding races of the ancient alliance. Human DNA carried markers that identified them as the rightful inheritors of the Watchers' protection and knowledge. The ancient alliance had planned for this moment. They had seeded the galaxy with worlds where their descendants might evolve, hoping that someday their children would be ready to take up the burden of defending the galaxy against the true enemy. The enemy that had destroyed the original alliance was not gone. It had only been sleeping in the void between galaxies, waiting for the right time to return. The Watchers had been keeping guard, but they needed living beings to truly fulfill their purpose. They needed the descendants of their creators to accept their destiny and become the new guardians of the galaxy. As this knowledge flooded into the minds of the USS Endeavour's crew, Captain Jake Morrison realized that his decision to investigate the Forbidden region had changed everything. Humanity was about to learn that they were not alone in the universe, and that they had inherited a responsibility greater than anyone could have imagined. The massive Watcher structure pulsed with gentle light as it continued to share its ancient knowledge with the crew of the USS Endeavour. Captain Jake Morrison felt his mind expanding with information that no human had ever possessed. The experience was overwhelming and wonderful at the same time. Communications Officer Rob Carter worked frantically at his station, trying to establish a proper two-way conversation with the alien intelligence. His equipment was not designed for this kind of contact, but somehow it was working. "Captain, I think I've got a stable connection," Rob said, sweat beading on his forehead from the mental effort. "The Watcher wants to tell us more about why it destroyed the Draconian fleet." The main screen filled with images that seemed to form directly in their minds rather than through their eyes. They saw the Draconian fleet approaching human space with plans to destroy Earth's colonies one by one. The Watchers had detected this threat and calculated that humanity was not yet strong enough to defend itself. So they had acted. The images showed how the Watchers had emerged from their hidden dimensions and surrounded the Draconian fleet. Alien warriors had tried to fight, but their weapons could not even touch beings made of pure energy and ancient technology. In minutes, it was over. Dr. Kevin Price studied the energy readings coming from the structure. "Captain, this thing has been watching human development for thousands of years. It has records of everything we've ever done as a species. Everything. Our first use of fire, the development of agriculture, the invention of writing, spaceflight, everything. It's been waiting for us to reach a certain level of technological and social development. Technical Officer Grace Morgan looked up from her instruments with amazement. Sir, the Watcher is offering to share its database with us. The technological knowledge of dozens of advanced civilizations. We could learn things that would advance human science by thousands of years. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. This decision was far too important for one starship captain to make alone. But the Watcher seemed to understand his concern. New information flowed into their minds, showing them that there were other Watcher stations throughout human space. They had been hidden, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. That moment was now. Chief Science Officer Dan Rogers worked with Grace to access the Watcher's technical databases. What they found was incredible. The ancient Alliance had developed technologies that seemed like magic compared to human science. Faster than light travel that didn't require months of journey time. Energy sources that could power entire planets. Weapons that could defend against threats from other dimensions. But with the knowledge came warnings. The Watchers showed them images of the true enemy that had destroyed the original Alliance. It was called the Devourer of Worlds, a force of pure destruction that existed in the spaces between galaxies. It consumed entire civilizations, not just for their physical matter, but for their life energy, their creativity, their very essence. The ancient Alliance had fought against the Devourer for thousands of years before finally being overwhelmed. But they had learned something important during that long war. The Devourer was not truly alive in any sense that other beings could understand. It was more like a force of nature, driven by an endless hunger that could never be satisfied. Only way to stop it was to contain it, to build barriers that would keep it trapped in the void between galaxies. The Watchers were those barriers, powered by the combined consciousness of all the species that had died fighting the Devourer. Dr. Carol White monitored the crew as more visions filled their minds. Captain, the Watchers are showing us what happened to our ancestors. The humans of the ancient Alliance were called the Builders. They were master engineers who created most of the technology that the Alliance used in their war. Our ancestors built the Watchers? Not alone, but they were the primary designers. That's why we carry the genetic markers that the Watchers recognize. We're literally their children, separated by millions of years of evolution. Security Chief Mike Torres looked up from his tactical station with concern. Sir, if this Devourer thing is so dangerous, why are the Watchers telling us about it now? Why not just keep protecting us without getting us involved? The answer came not in words, but in images that made everyone's blood run cold. Deep in the void between galaxies, something massive was stirring. The Devourer had been sleeping for millions of years, but the activation of the Watcher network to destroy the Draconian fleet had sent ripples across dimensions. The ancient enemy was beginning to wake up. The Watchers could continue their lonely vigil for a while longer, but they were powered by the consciousness of species that had been dead for millions of years. Their energy was slowly fading. They needed living beings to help maintain the barriers that kept the Devourer contained. They needed humanity to accept their heritage and become the new guardians of the galaxy. Navigator Paul Johnson stared at the star charts the Watchers were showing them. Captain, they're revealing the locations of other sleeping civilizations. Species that went into hibernation during the Great War and are still waiting for it to be safe to wake up. If we accept this responsibility, we won't be alone. How many? Dozens. Maybe hundreds of different species scattered across the galaxy, all waiting for someone to tell them it's safe to come out of hiding. Jake realized that humanity was being offered something incredible. Not just advanced technology, but the chance to lead a new galactic civilization. But it came with a price. They would have to take on the responsibility of defending that galaxy against an enemy that had already destroyed countless worlds. The Watcher. seemed to sense his thoughts and provided one final piece of information. Humanity did have a choice. They could refuse the offer and continue their development naturally. The Watchers would continue to protect Earth for as long as their power lasted. But when that power finally failed, humanity would face the Devourer alone and unprepared. Or they could accept their destiny, gain access to technologies and allies beyond imagination, and take their place as the leaders of a new galactic alliance. It would be dangerous, and many humans would die in the battles to come. But it would also give their species a chance to survive and thrive among the stars. "Captain," said Lisa Carter quietly, "what do we tell them?" Jake looked around his bridge, at the faces of his crew. These were good people, brave people who had followed him into the unknown without question. But this decision would affect not just them, but every human being who had ever lived or ever would live. "We tell them we need to take this information back to Earth," Jake said finally. "This choice belongs to all of humanity, not just to us." The Watcher pulsed with understanding and approval. It had waited millions of years already. It could wait a little longer for humanity to make up its mind. 2 weeks later, the USS Endeavour entered Earth's solar system, carrying the most important message in human history. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his ready room, reviewing the recordings and data they had gathered from the Watcher station. The weight of what they had discovered still felt impossible to believe. The journey home had been difficult for the entire crew. The knowledge that humanity was descended from an ancient galactic civilization, that they were being offered incredible technology and responsibility, had changed everyone aboard the ship. Some crew members were excited by the possibilities. Others were terrified by the dangers that lay ahead. "Captain," came Lisa Carter's voice over the comm system, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. They want us to report to headquarters immediately." "Understood." "Set course for Earth." Within hours of their arrival, Jake found himself standing before the Global Defense Council in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth had gathered to hear his report. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and politicians who would help decide humanity's future. President Helen Martinez called the session to order. "Captain Morrison, please tell us what you found in the Kepler 442 system." Jake began with the discovery of the destroyed Draconian fleet and methodically explained everything they had learned. As he spoke, he watched the faces of the council. Members changed from skepticism to amazement to fear. When he finished, the room was completely silent. "You're telling us," said General Robert Hayes, "that something destroyed the entire Draconian Third Fleet to protect Earth?" "Yes, sir." The Watchers identified the Draconian expansion as a threat to human civilization and responded according to their programming. Dr. Amanda Foster, Earth's leading xenobiologist, leaned forward. "And these Watchers claim that humans are genetically related to the species that created them millions of years ago." "That's correct. We carry genetic markers that identify us as descendants of the ancient alliance. Specifically, we're related to the species they called the Builders." President Martinez stood up and walked to the large display screen showing the data from the Watcher station. "Captain, in your opinion, are these beings telling us the truth?" Jake had thought about this question many times during the journey home. Man, they had no reason to lie. They could have destroyed us as easily as they destroyed the Draconians, if they wanted to harm us. Instead, they offered us knowledge and partnership. But at what cost? Asked Secretary of Defense William Parker. "You said they want us to help defend the galaxy against this devourer creature. That sounds like they want to recruit us as soldiers in their war." "Not soldiers, sir. Leaders. They're offering to make humanity the center of a new galactic alliance. We would gain access to technologies that could solve every problem our species faces. Clean energy, faster than light travel, medical knowledge that could eliminate disease and extend human life by centuries." Dr. Foster spoke up again. "What about the other species you mentioned?" The ones that went into hibernation during the Ancient War? The Watchers have provided coordinates for dozens of hidden colonies throughout the galaxy. Species that have been sleeping for millions of years, waiting for it to be safe to wake up. If we accept this offer, we wouldn't be facing these challenges alone. The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some council members argued that humanity wasn't ready for such responsibility. Others insisted that they had no choice if they wanted to survive what was coming. The Devourer was already beginning to stir in the void between galaxies, and the Watcher's power was slowly fading. On the 4th day, President Martinez made an announcement that would change human history forever. The Global Defense Council has reached a decision. While this choice involves incredible risks, we cannot ignore the evidence Captain Morrison has provided. If these Watchers truly protected us from the Draconian fleet, and if this Devourer represents a threat to all life in our galaxy, then we have a moral obligation to act. We accept the Watcher's offer. The months that followed were unlike anything in human history. Watcher stations throughout human space revealed themselves, emerging from hidden dimensions where they had waited for millions of years. The technology they shared revolutionized human civilization almost overnight. Dr. Kevin Price led the first team of scientists to study Watcher technology. Within weeks, they had developed new power sources that could provide clean energy for entire continents. Medical advances eliminated most diseases and began the process of extending human lifespan dramatically. Commander Amy Sullivan was placed in charge of the new Galactic Defense Force, a military organization designed to work with the Watcher network. Ships were built using advanced materials and weapons that could fight enemies from other dimensions. The first human-operated Watcher station was constructed in Earth's solar system, with Captain Jake Morrison serving as its commanding officer. The station was a marvel of ancient and human technology working together, capable of monitoring threats across vast distances and responding with incredible speed. But the most amazing moment came when humanity made contact with the first of the sleeping civilizations. The Keepers, a species of beings that looked like living crystals, had been hibernating in a hidden system for over 2 million years. When they received the signal that it was safe to wake up, their joy at finding they were no longer alone was overwhelming. Other species followed. The Shapers, master biologists who could adapt life to thrive on any world. The Singers, beings of pure energy who could communicate across galactic distances instantly. The Builders, ancient relatives of humanity who had survived in small hidden colonies. Each species brought unique knowledge and abilities to the new alliance. Together, they began the work of preparing for the return of the Devourer. Jake stood on the bridge of the first human Watcher station, looking out at the fleet of ships from dozens of different species. In just 1 year, humanity had gone from being alone in the universe to leading a galactic civilization. But their celebration was cut short by an alarm that chilled everyone's blood. "Captain," called out sensor technician Nina Scott, "I'm detecting movement at the edge of the galaxy. Something massive is approaching from the void between the stars." Jake looked at the display showing the readings from the deep space monitors. After millions of years of sleep, the Devourer of Worlds was finally awakening. The ancient enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations was coming to finish what it had started long ago. "All stations, this is Earth Command," Jake broadcast. "To the Alliance fleet, the Devourer is stirring. All defensive positions, prepare for the long war to begin again." As the message spread across the galaxy, billions of beings from hundreds of species prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. Humanity had accepted their destiny as the new guardians of the galaxy. Now they would have to prove they were worthy of the trust their ancient ancestors had placed in them. The real test was just beginning.